At sunrise, Michael Cahaley stepped outside and found a fresh crack snaking through his driveway, widening by the day. Nearly 200,000 Hawaiians live atop Kilauea, where the ground is literally splitting open, faster than scientists believed possible. This isn't just another eruption. Hawaii's most active volcano is expanding, with daily tremors, widening rifts, and entire neighborhoods suddenly at risk. What's causing the ground to rupture beneath people's homes? The answer could change everything we thought we knew about this island. Michael Cahaley lies awake in the dark, listening for sounds that don't belong. Some nights it's a sharp crack, louder than any branch snapping, echoing through the cinder soil beneath his bedroom. Other times it's a low, rolling groan, as if the island itself is shifting in its sleep. By morning, new evidence waits outside. A crack slices across the driveway, jagged and fresh, dust still settling at the edges. The first time it appeared, it was barely the width of a finger. By sunrise the next day, it had grown to 3 inches. Within a week, Michael could fit his whole hand inside. The family's daily routine now includes checking the ground before breakfast, measuring the gap with a ruler, and snapping a photo for the insurance file they hope they'll never need. The repair started small, patching concrete, filling gaps, resetting bricks, but the damage crept deeper, spidering through the foundation, tilting the front steps, warping the kitchen tiles. The latest bill came in at $4,300, a sum that stings even more knowing the fine print excludes anything caused by volcanic activity. Michael keeps the invoice tucked in a folder with old mortgage statements and evacuation checklists. The family's emergency bags sit by the door, packed with passports, birth certificates, and 3 days' worth of clothes. No one wants to leave, but no one can ignore the possibility anymore. At night, Michael sometimes stands on the porch, feeling for vibrations through the soles of his feet. He remembers when the only threat was a distant lava flow, something you could see coming, something you could outrun if you had enough warning. Now the danger arrives without flames, just the relentless, invisible pressure forcing the ground apart inch by inch. His children ask if the house is safe. He tells them yes, but his eyes flicker to the growing crack before he answers. For the Cahaleys, the abstract warnings have become daily reality. Each new fracture is a message from the earth, impossible to ignore, demanding attention with every step they take across their own front yard. Kilauea rises nearly 4,000 feet above the Pacific, its slope stretching across more than 550 square miles of Hawaii's Big Island. This is not some distant, uninhabited peak. Nearly 200,000 people live within the volcano's potential impact zone, their neighborhoods woven into a landscape shaped by centuries of eruptions. Communities like Pahoa, Mountain View, and the outer edges of Hilo all sit within reach of lava flows that, in past decades, have traveled up to 15 miles from their source. The roads, schools, and businesses of these towns are built on ground that is always in motion, always at risk of change. The scale of what's at stake became painfully clear in 2018. That year, Kilauea produced its most destructive eruption in 2 centuries. Lava fountains blasted 300 feet into the air. Entire subdivisions vanished beneath slow-moving rivers of molten rock. 700 homes were lost, many in the Leilani estates and surrounding neighborhoods. Thousands of residents were forced to evacuate, some with only minutes to spare as new fissures opened in their streets. The damage exceeded $800 million, leaving scars, physical and emotional, that linger to this day. Yet the volcano's reach extends beyond the path of any single eruption. The East Rift Zone, a 25-mile-long fracture system, cuts across the island from summit to sea. It is the hidden architecture beneath the surface, the conduit for magma and the engine behind the island's transformation. When the rift is active, the effects ripple outward. Roads buckle, power lines sag, and water mains split. Even areas that escape the direct threat of lava flows can find their foundation shifting, their infrastructure strained by the restless ground below. For the families who call this place home, every day is a negotiation with uncertainty. The memory of 2018 is never far away. It serves as a reminder that the volcano's quiet periods are temporary, and that the scale of destruction can be measured not just in acres or dollars, but in the rhythm of daily life interrupted. In this environment, the risk is communal, shared by entire towns that have learned to live with the possibility that the ground beneath them could change at any moment. At 6:43 a.m. on July 14, 2025, a sudden burst of seismic energy jolted awake the network of sensors that ring Kilauea's summit. Seismographs recorded over 400 earthquakes in the next 18 hours, each one shallow, most less than 2 miles beneath the surface. The shaking was relentless, a drumbeat that rippled through the monitoring stations and sent a wave of uncertainty through the Hawaiian Volcano Observatory. As the data streamed in, the pattern was impossible to ignore. What began as a typical seismic swarm quickly escalated. GPS receivers anchored into solid basalt on opposing sides of the East Rift Zone began to register movement. Not the slow drift of tectonic plates, but a measurable, accelerating pull. By the end of July 14th, the instrument showed separation. First inches, then feet. Within 2 weeks, the gap between two of the main GPS stations had stretched to 18 feet. The ground was not just shaking, it was physically tearing apart. Aerial surveys became the next priority. On July 16th, Dr. Michelle Taka and her team boarded a helicopter at dawn, flying low over the East Rift Zone. What they saw below defied their expectations. A fresh rift, running for hundreds of yards, had opened in the landscape. In some places, the chasm measured nearly 12 feet wide. Asphalt roads ended abruptly at the edge of the gap, their painted lines now misaligned by several feet. Fences, once straight, twisted and dangled in open air. The entire flank of the volcano appeared to be pulling away from itself. Dr. Taka's field notes captured the shock of the moment. We have never documented a rift opening to this degree in the monitoring era. The deformation is not localized. It spans the width of the rift zone. This is the volcanic edifice in motion. Instrument logs from the ground confirmed what the aerial team witnessed. Each GPS station reported its own trajectory, some moving east, others west, all in a coordinated ballet dictated by forces deep underground. The rates were staggering. In locations along the rift, the ground was spreading by several centimeters per day, far outpacing anything seen in the 2018 eruption or any previous event since continuous monitoring began. Seismic graphs from July 14th onward show a dense cluster of events, each quake a signature of rock fracturing under stress. The pattern was not random. The largest events clustered beneath the summit, but the deformation radiated outward, with the rift zone absorbing the strain. The seismic swarm was both a warning and a measurement, each tremor a data point in the volcano's unfolding transformation. For residents and scientists alike, these numbers were not abstract. They were the difference between stability and collapse, between a known threat and an unknown future. The physical evidence, cracks in the earth, shifting GPS coordinates, and a rift zone visibly torn open, left no room for doubt. Kilauea was not just erupting, it was expanding, and the instruments were recording every inch. Dr. James Nakamura stands in front of a wall of seismic charts, each line tracing the restless pulse beneath Kilauea. For decades, the volcano was thought to operate like a single, massive lung, a central chamber inflating and deflating beneath the summit. But the new data refuses to fit that model. Since early summer, the ground hasn't just risen at the summit. It's bulging in multiple places at once. The summit has lifted 14 inches since June. The middle of the East Rift Zone is up 22 inches. Even the coastline 9 miles away has climbed 9 inches. These numbers, pulled from a mesh of GNSS receivers and satellite tracks, show a volcano that's swelling in stereo, not just at its core. The pattern is even more unsettling when mapped over time. In late July, ground stations recorded an average of 1.2 centimeters of daily expansion. By mid-August, the pace had tripled to 3.7 centimeters. By the end of September, it reached 5.4 centimeters a day. That's a 350% acceleration in less than 3 months, an expansion rate that outpaces anything documented during the 2018 eruption or in any previous monitoring period. The ground is moving faster, not settling down. Nakamura's team turned to seismic imaging for answers. By tracking how earthquake waves bend and slow through the crust, they built a picture of the magma's hidden architecture. Instead of a single cavern, they found a tangled network, multiple reservoirs, each one pressurizing and shifting independently, yet connected by channels and dikes that run the length of the rift. Some of these pockets lie shallow, just a mile or two down. Others stretch deeper, stacked like layers beneath the volcano's flanks. When magma rises from below, it doesn't just fill one chamber. It pushes into this entire system, pressurizing the summit, the rift, and the coast all at once. We're not looking at a single balloon anymore, Nakamura says. It's more like a series of bladders all linked together. When you squeeze one, the others respond. Sometimes instantly, sometimes with a lag. That's why we're seeing ground deformation in places that aren't erupting. The stress is shared across the whole network. The implications are profound. Classic eruption forecasts relied on the idea of a central chamber reaching a breaking point. But a network system can distribute pressure in unpredictable ways, allowing for rapid, uneven expansion without an immediate eruption. It also means that ground cracks, uplift, and even surface damage can appear miles from any visible vent, with little warning. The data upends decades of assumptions and leaves scientists racing to adapt their models to a volcano that refuses to play by old rules. Every new GNSS reading, every uptick in expansion hints at a deeper mystery. The question now is not just where the next eruption might break through, but how this multi-reservoir system will evolve under mounting pressure. For the communities on Kilauea's flanks and for the scientists watching from their labs, the only certainty is that the ground beneath them is more dynamic and more unpredictable than anyone imagined. Heat radiates from the ground where new cracks have opened, turning bare earth into a hazard zone. In some spots near the summit, thermal cameras register temperatures between 85 and 143 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt plastic, hot enough to blister skin in seconds. The air itself is changing too. Monitoring stations now record 8,000 tons of sulfur dioxide released every day, more than double the average from just a year ago. The odor of rotten eggs lingers in the wind, a warning that invisible gases are seeping from the earth along with the heat. Sulfur dioxide is only part of the problem. Carbon dioxide, heavier than air and difficult to detect without instruments, has reached levels that can threaten health in low-lying areas. In response, county officials have distributed air quality monitors to 300 households in the highest-risk neighborhoods. These small, blinking devices now sit on kitchen counters and bedside tables, tracking the unseen hazards that move through open windows and under doors. For families living close to the summit, a normal morning can start with an alarm from an air monitor, not a clock. The risk is not theoretical. Children walking to school in some districts are told to avoid certain routes on days when gas readings spike. Residents with asthma or heart conditions are urged to stay indoors, window sealed, air purifiers running on high. Emergency rooms have seen an uptick in visits for respiratory distress, especially among the elderly and the very young. These dangers arrive quietly, without the drama of fountains or flowing lava. They settle into daily routines, checking a monitor before stepping outside, taping plastic over drafty window frames, keeping inhalers close at hand. The threat is persistent and intimate, woven into the fabric of life on the volcano's flanks. For the community, the numbers on a gas meter or the heat rising from a crack are not just data points. They are reminders that the ground beneath them is not just moving, it's changing the air they breathe, the water they drink, and the choices they make every day. The Hawaiian Volcano Observatory sits at the center of a technological web. 200 seismic stations, 75 GPS receivers, all feeding real-time data into a control room that never truly sleeps. But even this network, built for the world's most active volcanoes, is showing its limits. 3 seismometers in the rift zone have gone silent in the past month, not from neglect, but because the ground itself has pulled them apart. Budget sheets tally up the reality: $8.2 million a year divided among 5 volcanoes, with only 32 scientists to keep pace. Some monitoring stations haven't seen maintenance in 8 months. The volcano is outpacing the people trying to understand it. Keiko Matsumoto, the county's emergency management director, puts it plainly: "We can manage an evacuation. What we cannot do is stop this process. We cannot predict exactly when or where the next major event will occur. We can only respond." As scientists race to keep up, new evidence arrives from deeper within the Earth. Dr. Patricia Reeves, a mantle geochemist, has been measuring helium isotope ratios in volcanic gases. The numbers are stark: helium-3 to helium-4 ratios higher than anything seen in 2 centuries. These ratios only appear when magma rises straight from the planet's deep mantle, material that hasn't been recycled through the crust. Dr. Reeves explains, "This is primordial mantle material arriving in unprecedented volumes. If the hotspot feeding Kilauea and Mauna Loa is pulsing harder, then the forces shaping Hawaii are not just local, they're planetary. The scale of the unknown grows larger." On October 17th, the volcano delivered a spectacle that dwarfed previous eruptions. Episode 35 began with fountains at the north vent soaring to 1,100 feet. Within the hour, the south vent joined in, sending lava nearly 1,500 feet into the night sky. Gas plumes towered above, visible for miles, as the ground trembled beneath the weight of so much molten rock. For all the instruments and all the models, the system remains on the edge of understanding. The ground keeps moving, the data keeps coming, and the questions only get bigger. No one can say how far this will go or what shape the next day will take. Between July and September 2025, ground sensors around Kilauea's East Rift Zone recorded expansion rates accelerating from 1.2 to 5.4 centimeters per day. This is the fastest measured deformation in the volcano's modern history. Scientists now agree that Kilauea's magma system is more complex than previously thought, with multiple reservoirs and new channels driving surface cracks and widespread ground uplift. Gas emissions have more than doubled compared to 2024, and temperatures in newly opened fissures now reach up to 143 degrees Celsius. Despite around-the-clock monitoring by the USGS and a network of 200 seismic stations, instrument failures and limited budgets have left gaps in the data. Key questions remain about the true scale of the underground connections and whether Mauna Loa's recent unrest is linked. For the nearly 200,000 people living nearby, the risk is immediate and growing. The only certainty is that Kilauea's expansion marks a turning point for Hawaii's volcanic future, one being documented in real time with answers still out of reach.